Hey friends, and welcome into A Walk Through the Word, Daily Bread with Crystal Fry. I am your host, Crystal Fry, and while the podcast is on a break for the month of June, I just couldn't wait to share this conversation with you. Joining me today is my beautiful friend, Karleen Wolanin. Karleen opens up and dives really deep into the vulnerability pool in this episode, sharing about her struggle with early obesity caused by medication to treat a medical issue, being in survival mode, and then her turning point of recognizing that her choices were her own and she was the one in control and could do something about it. Karleen also tells us about her near-death medical emergency with DVT last year and her experience with being a parent of a child who's struggling with addiction. She also tells us about how she feels called to speak out on both of these topics. My friends, Karleen has so much to share, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to help her tell her story. Be sure you check out the show notes to connect with Karleen on social media and also at her Linktree. All right, friends, here we go. God's word is powerful. The missing link is our identity in Christ. When we know who we are and who He created us to be, that is when we can truly walk in freedom. You are never alone. There is hope, and that hope is Jesus Christ. All right, well, Karleen, if you are ready, I am ready, and we can get this show on the road.
Perfect. Well, gosh, thank you so much for this opportunity. Anytime any of us get an opportunity to share, tribulations and stuff we've gone through, why not? Like that's what we're here for. And so, to introduce myself, my name's Karleen Wolanin. I love helping people. I'm a mom, a grandma. Who would have thought? I have three beautiful girls, and I've been through a lot of life, and so I realized that, I grew up from a foundation of just not really saying much, like keeping things quiet, just showing up no matter what. And, judgment, the word judgment really stands out to me because, I was pretty much like lived in this perfection kind of world. Everything had to be perfect. Everything looked perfect. And you don't let people into your world of, maybe chaos, or that maybe you do have flaws or life happening behind the scenes, right? And so I lived that for my whole life. And that puts a lot of pressure on so many. I know, the more I connect with people, that is what they're going through is this, a lot of us moms feel like we have to have it all figured out. We have to do it all. We have to show up and put ourselves to the side and just keep going. And so what happens is we're so scared to talk about what is really going on in our life. Like, it's okay to let people in. You don't have to go out and throw it out like laundry, dirty laundry, but it's okay to be vulnerable and raw and open and transparent. And sadly, I think a lot of us from previous generations were not taught that. And so it's so hard. It feels so uncomfortable for us to kind of like, here's stuff I'm going through. But because we're not, and because I'm having to learn to do that, so many people are struggling behind the doors, and so many of us that went through COVID and all these, big real life shifts in our children's lives, in our lives, like, it's very uncomfortable for us to just say, hey, I don't have this all figured out. I have a lot of life happening behind the scenes. And that is just taking you from, looking like we have it all figured out to, hey, it's okay. I don't have it all figured out, and you don't have it all figured out. And guess what? We can actually work together because we both don't have it figured out. So I have just learned that part of why I'm here, I'll go back to my childhood. I grew up and found out at a very early age I had Crohn's disease. I was in middle school. I was sick all the time. I didn't know what was going on. After so many tests and everything, I found out I had Crohn's disease, and that's very rare. Usually people don't get that until like 25 or something like that. And so I was put on like 60 pills a day. Prednisone was one of them, and I just blew up. So being a kid, struggling with obesity came with a lot. I was bullied. Um, I just tried to fit in. I was a people pleaser because I was so insecure. I would, one time I got on the bus and kids put like thumbtacks, and I remember sitting on them. And so it was just a hard, like it's your childhood forms you, it is like the foundation that lays it out for the rest of your life. And so, like I just had this hardship that I went through my whole life with obesity. And so I know what so many people go through with that. And, I just remember that, I didn't go to prom because I was sick. I was in and out of the hospital all the time. I didn't experience what most kids experience. And, I made it. That's the best word I could say is I just went through life and I tried to make it. And, I realized at an early age, probably around like 17, I grew up Catholic, and my mother and father were not saved. And I chose that I wanted to get saved. And, that was the one step I made for myself, that I knew that I needed God in my life. Like everything else was, not functioning properly. I couldn't do this all by myself. And I just knew that I needed him in my life. And I will say, not really knowing where to go from there. One thing I look back that, I really want to speak on today is that I hope to speak to some young women today through a lot that I've gone through in my life, that the love that we seek right now is God. We look for material things to fulfill that. We look for men to fulfill that, relationships, codependency, all of these things. And being from a family, and I love my dad very much, but he was from Air Force and, perfectionism, and had a big job. And I love the values that my father taught me to be a strong woman. But, there was that I wanted to feel needed and I needed to feel loved. And I think a lot of young women go through that. And so he didn't know any differently, like his love language was shown in different ways. But it was something that is so important that I hope fathers also take away from this too, is that women really need that. Young women that you're raising need that sense of, belonging, that they're good enough, that you're proud of them. They don't have to change who they are, meet them right where they are. And that's so important for us young women going through life, because that's where you're seeing so many women are broken. They're broken because they don't know the love they need is from Christ. And so, especially in social media world and all the things, that we're just trying, we think there's this world that exists that's not real, like this perfect everything, going on these fancy trips, having the fancy purses, having the fancy this, like we're trying so hard to be like everybody else, instead of just looking at who can we be here. We don't have to be like that person. We don't have to be like this person. And with me struggling with confidence my whole life, and being obese, this is something that I struggled with so much. And so I did start looking in all the wrong places for that attention and for that love. And I was seeking to feel validated, to feel like I fit in. And so many women are looking for that. And so if there's one thing I could say that I see now at 42 years old, is that the love and everything I was seeking was God. And I was trying to fill it with everything else, but he just wanted me to need him. And that is the one thing I did not do. So my life, and what I'll kind of share throughout this whole situation, has been so many obstacles because I did not put him first. And I didn't even know that I could. I didn't know that I should. I didn't know the love that he had in that perspective. And so I really hope that speaks to people today, because one thing I've learned in life, we don't know what we don't know. if you don't speak it, if you don't share like your obstacles, your stuff that you've gone through, you don't hear how you can relate to someone. You don't hear how, wow, maybe that is exactly what I'm seeking for. God uses so many different signs and all these different things to help us, to meet us right where we are. We hear things at the exact moment he wants us to. We see things exactly when he needs us to. We just have to slow down, breathe, and just let him in. And in the world that we live in right now, that's so fast paced, holy cow. So many moms, so many this, like we are expected to do so much. And we operate at such a high capacity that our mindset is just not slowed down. So it's very hard for us to even take that time to see where we need to work in our lives sometimes. So I understand, especially when we're young, we don't even know those type of things because we're always on social media. We don't know to go outside and take a deep breath, or to just, get in the word before we just rush into our day, go to school or go to work or be a mom or be a dad, whatever that is. Like we just go, go, go. And so, I got married very young, and I was in nursing school. I had to drop out because I was so sick, being an early mom. And, I would say throughout my entire life, I just was functioning. I didn't, I will say just, based on some stuff that's happened recently, I feel like I finally have been awoken for the first time. But my entire life, I was just existing. I always loved people. I had such a heart for people, but I just felt like I was going through the motions my whole life. I was struggling with my weight. I just was not in a good spot. Um, I tried going back to school for nursing and definitely became a nurse and loved being able to help people. But there was something missing, like I just wasn't complete. And I definitely struggle with codependency, in my marriage and other things. And, was again, just not knowing where does Karleen fit in this world? Who is she really needing? What is missing in her life? And, I hit so many rock bottoms in my life. And I feel like, every little situation you continually go through in life, they're there to help you to that next step. God is using every little thing we go through. I think sometimes we're like, why me? Why is this always happening to me? Like we question all of the things that we keep going through. And I think that what we really need to be asking ourselves is, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Everything in your life, it's not that you're being punished or, that you just have bad luck or whatever we might think it is. It's helping you to learn from it, to grow from it. And, it helps you to start looking at things with different goggles. So it's been 9 years ago, I had a miscarriage, right around 5 months. And I hit this rock bottom. I remember being in my closet and just remembering like, wow, is this it? Like, is this how everyone is going to remember me? And it was just such this experience that was it was very overwhelming. It was one of those things where you're like, you don't even know where to begin. You feel like this is it for you. Like you just feel like you're in this pit and you want to cry out, but you don't feel like anybody will hear you. And I remember just, always with being overweight, like I was always looked at differently. People just treated me differently. And, it was hard. It was mentally hard for me. So I think having that miscarriage, I was blessed with two beautiful girls, but I think having a miscarriage at 5 months really, it awokened me that I was not functioning at my best. I was not who I needed to be. I was just, barely making it. And so it really, mourning the loss of a child really changes you. It's something that you can never, put into words, but I think it was what I needed to get healthier and take a stance in my life. So I did do that. And I was petrified because I was like, can I do this? I think so many of us have so many doubts and fears about every little action that we want to say yes to, but we're scared to say yes to. Like even me doing this today, like I am petrified of speaking in front of people. I always used to joke and say, if it requires me to talk, I can't do it. I love people, but just speaking always scared me. And so I definitely think that me getting healthier, I lost 100 pounds. And what I love about it's not so much the number that I lost. What needed to change was my mindset. And that's what I think so many people are struggling with out there. Like, they're just like, why can't this work? Or why can't I just get healthy in general? Or why can't I show up and speak or do certain things? It's all mindset. It's all mindset. And so that's what I really want to talk about big time is that, I had to break down this fear factor. I had to break down and learn different ways of life, and one thing that I tell people all the time that's so important is we have obstacles that happen every single day, and we have a choice. We have a choice to allow those obstacles to hit us down, or we have a choice to get back up. And I truly believe that's why I'm always getting back up, because I use everything I've gone through and I try to model that I am just like everyone else, but I contend every single day. I have a choice, and it's not easy. I fight this mental battle. I think all of us have that battlefield of the mind, that we read about, and it's a battleship every single day. We have so many thoughts that race in our mind every single day, and we have a choice. We have a choice to go into that victim mentality, the emotional whirlwind, woe is me, kind of feeling, or, I just can't do anything right. And we just keep prolonging the deep work that we need to do in ourselves that help us to keep contending and to keep moving forward. And so, one of the big things is I didn't want to ever miss out on life of what could be. That's been something I think really big for me. Like you look around at your family and everyone that just, around you. And I see so many people, and I feel like, we get to a place where we just get so complacent. We just get so complacent in our life. We we feel like this is as good as it's going to get. And a lot of it's that scarcity mindset. It's seeing that that's about as far as our parents got. And we're proud of everything, it's not I need, I deserve better, or, it's not a money kind of thing or any of those things. It is that I feel like we are kind of at a standstill in our world of like moving to our best version. And we're so stuck in just, this is as good as it gets. This is all I can do. And that's so not true. And when you start seeing that, yes, I can get through this one little hurdle, then you're like, that wasn't so bad. And then you're like, okay, maybe I can get through this next hurdle. And then you're like, oh, that's not so bad. So I feel like all of these things that I just keep going through, the going through obesity as a child, losing a child, a lot of, issues, bringing forth from family dynamics, into our family. Chaos has been a word that I remember very familiar, word is chaos. And that's not how you're supposed to function. And then, moving into, all the different things that I continually go through, I feel like it is showing me, Karleen, you can do this, but you have a choice. And I can either, people are like, how are you so strong? Like I hear that all the time. How are you so strong? How do you do it? And it's not that I'm so strong, because if deep down, if you knew, like I have just as much weaknesses as you do. I have just as much fear as you do. I have just as much self-doubt sometimes as you do. But I lean on God, and I lean on that. I see that I have been through these storms and I keep showing up. And it's just a storm. It's just an obstacle. It doesn't mean your life is over. And you get to contend every day for, what does your next day look like? What does your life get to look like? I think me losing 100 pounds has helped me to see that I'm capable of anything. But I also think going through bullying as a child has helped me to see that that's not who Karleen has to be. Like everything I've gone through, like back in the day, like, that is who I was, and it's always who I will be. But I had a choice to make. I can take all that hurt and all the things I've gone through in my life, like deep, deep pain and suffering, and I can let that mold me and be a victim to it. I can say, hey, I'm going to sit here and my life just sucks. I'm not going anywhere in my life. Like I am a victim to everything else and blaming everyone around me. You bullied me. You did this, you did that, or I can say, you know what? That stuff helped me to get to decide, do I want to keep living like this? Because we all have trauma and stuff that we've gone through in life, but we have a choice every single day. Are we going to be a victim to what's happened in our life? Are we going to choose that we get to keep moving forward and be stronger? And I saw something that I wanted to kind of like read really quick that really spoke to me. Even as we walk through hard times, God is with us. Hard times are never pleasant. However, God can teach us a lot through hard times. During hard times, we will face trials, temptations, and tribulations, yet the Lord never leaves us during these times. And another thing that really spoke to me, we triumph, which is big to hear this. We triumph even in our troubles. We think troubles cause us to not show up. We get depressed. We have all these anxieties and stuff. And we just kind of go into this pit when stuff happens. But if we can change the way we look at things, the things we look at will change. So triumphs, even in our troubles, knowing that trouble produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. So what I've done is I took all that junk, and I have been able to start molding who Karleen is. I'm building my character. I'm finding out, who is Karleen? How can I help young women? How can I help, women right now? To kind of also give you an idea of some stuff that has happened even since then. Like I want you guys to hear, even though I've made the decision to get better in life and to start showing up differently and really leaning on God. Last year I almost died. And I ended up getting DVT in both legs. I had 20 clots per leg, and then they traveled to my lungs. I had absolutely no symptoms. I had a very mild Charlie horse. I did not have swelling. I did not have heat to the touch. Nothing at all that would indicate that was DVT. DVT is the most deadliest silent killer out there. It is something that if it is not caught, and very, very fast, you die. And so many people, like 1 out of 8 that have DVT die. Like it is so astronomical, the amount of people that die from that. And there's just really no indication that you have it. And for those that don't know what DVT is, it's deep vein thrombosis. And again, it is something that I think not a lot of people understand. But then I also have pulmonary embolism. And, again, I didn't have shortness of breath. I didn't have anything to indicate that they were my lungs. And so I just, one thing I highly encourage everyone to do is pay attention to your discernment. I really believe like anything you start feeling, pay attention to those things. I've been very in tune to my body, very in tune to certain things that I feel that God just puts that in my heart at certain points. And I just knew something wasn't right. And I couldn't stress enough about that. I think we all have to be such big contenders and advocate. Like I was not one that ever advocated for my life or spoke up about things. Like I'm a people pleaser back in the day, but I'm learning like boundaries and all the beautiful things that come with being the dominant force of my life, and making sure that I'm taking care of me. And so, but again, there were absolutely no symptoms. So luckily they checked my D dimer and it was through the roof. And she was like, you need to go right now and get scans done and all of those things. So I rushed right away to the hospital, immediately admitted. He said he's never seen that many clots per leg. Then I'm sitting here going in to get a CT scan. It shows it in my lungs. And so I was in the emergency room for a couple of nights, and then all of a sudden the alarms start going off and I start crashing. And I'll never forget that moment. Like it was it was one of those like wake up call, like you just knew. I could see the loved ones around me, like their faces just like they knew what was happening, and they were screaming out to the nurses to come, and they start running in there and they're rushing me up to the ICU cardiac department because it must have traveled to my heart. And so I just knew, like it was like one of these moments that I knew I had to go through, because I believe that we have to get to places in our life. Like I've had so many rock bottoms in my life that obviously helped me to keep showing up for myself. But this was one of these moments that I needed to just awaken me. Like I think we just go through life, like I was saying, so fast. We take for granted everything. We need to slow down and appreciate our kids and our loved ones and life. Life is such a beautiful thing, and we just take it for granted so much. So I believe that I needed that moment to slow me down and to help me to really appreciate the life that I've been given, because we take it for granted so big. And that moment I'll never forget. I mean, it's just one of those things. I have PTSD from it. It has been such a traumatizing thing. I remember finally being discharged and getting put on medication, Eliquis. And I was so petrified to take off my compression stockings. I thought I would die. Like they would move around. Like, I mean, the trauma that goes with that, not knowing if you're going to die or live. I know people have way worse things with cancer and other things, but it's a thing that really does change you. It really changes how you see things. And I have, now sadly have venous insufficiency from it, and it will never go away. I have to wear compression stockings the rest of my life. Life, how it was, is no longer the same. And my just recently I got my factor 8 checked, and sadly it was skyrocket. I actually meet with her today to see where we're at. And but through this past year, I'm learning that we get very stuck on our limitations. Our limitations sometimes sadly define us. They stunt us, they stop us. And I'm having to learn what is my new norm. I can't, I have to keep my legs up. Sometimes I have to prop them up to get the blood flow going. Everything has changed. And, instead of though looking at that and feeling sorry for myself and all of the things that go along with this, I have to look at it as, well, what can I do differently? How can I show up differently? I might not be able to do squats like I used to, but what can I do differently? And it's a mental game that I play every day with that. But I truly believe that it's helped me to start seeing things differently. I'm a different person right now. I feel like I don't take anything for granted. I also feel like I have a bigger mission. I have a bigger mission to speak truth, to help awaken people, to help people to not feel alone. So many people, like I was saying, feel so alone. And, it takes people like me and like you doing something like this to help people to hear what they need to hear so they don't feel alone. And then guess what? One day they're going to be able to speak out, because they're going to be awakened and feel better and hear, wow, I'm not alone. So maybe I can make a difference too. But they won't feel that if they don't hear what they need to hear. So we need to hear similarities in people's lives to feel like, wow, I can relate to that person. I understand what they're going through. Thank gosh, I'm not alone. Thank gosh, somebody else is going through this. And in the process of all of that, my daughter, sadly, is struggling with addiction. And that has been a lot to take in. And I'm proud of her on so many levels. It's so much to learn and so much to really absorb as a parent. One of the biggest things I see that's not happening is parents aren't speaking out enough. And what's happening is, again, it's from that stigma, that judgment. We're so scared of what people are going to think because we have a loved one who might be struggling with alcohol or addiction. And what I'm learning is, though, there's so many more people now out here going through this. Fentanyl is through the roof right now. Dr. Phil actually was just doing something about that recently. It is so severe what's happening. If somebody doesn't start speaking up about it, it is going to be something that is going to, just be something that is going to just explode, sadly, all over the world. And people are not going to have enough information about it. They're not going to know that, sadly, it's in marijuana now. I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh, it's just pot, What they're not understanding is it is laced. Everything right now is being laced with fentanyl. And we can't steer away from these hard talks because we're going to lose people. We're going to lose loved ones. And sadly, the enemy knows he knows the people that are struggling with things, like somebody like me who went through stuff back in the day. He looks for these things in all of us, our kids, our family members. And some people don't know they're struggling with addiction. So they try it just one time, not wanting to go be, an addict. That's not what you're asking to go do, but you don't know until it sets off in your brain that wow, I have addiction. I didn't even know this. And then you can't stop. So if we now have fentanyl and you've got people out here that, now we're in a world that's struggling massively with depression because of a lot of social media. They think they need to look like this. They think they need to be this small. They think they need to be just like this person. And because they're not, they have no confidence. And what do people do when they don't have confidence? They look for it everywhere else because they're trying to fulfill something, because they were right where I was as a little girl, not knowing that I needed God's love. I was looking for it in all the wrong places. And addiction is looking for it in all the wrong places. It might be bulimia. It might be addiction. It might be hopping from guy to guy, needing that love from a person. There's so many things out there. It could be from shopping too much. There's so much we get addicted to. It's not just drugs. It's many things. And again, it's we're just not speaking about these things. We're not educating people enough about it because we're so scared to let people see that, yes, I have a daughter who is an addict, and I am not scared to say it. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm proud that I am going through this because I can maybe help other people. And I always tell my daughter her walk and her journey is hers to share on her own. But I definitely feel that being on this side, I will say that parents, I don't think they realize that we have just as much work to do as the person going through addiction. What I'm realizing is we have to do our own journey too. And so I did not expect to walk through this journey, but I got to tell you, yet again, God is using another obstacle. I have plenty, as you know, and I'm sure all of us do. But I really hope you guys are hearing that I constantly am going to always have storms and obstacles. But what I see that's happening is God has another circle for me. God has another experience for me to share about. God has another group of people to save, another group of people to talk to. Every single thing, I can talk about health now. I can talk about childhood obesity. I can talk about blood clots. I can talk about codependency. I can talk about low self-worth. I can talk about it all because I've been through it. And I am able to use those experiences because I know God wants us to talk on these things, and we should not be scared to speak on these things. But through this walk of addiction, I could not stress enough that parents, one of the biggest things I'm having to learn is boundaries. And one of the toughest things I will say that I've had to do, and I think I saved something I wanted to say. God showed me this, and it was funny. I actually saw this a couple years before I even knew that my daughter was going through addiction, and God needed me to get to this place to fully release my child to him. And I was like, this is hard. This is hard. This is probably like the hardest, I think, especially some people that have adult kids and teenage kids. This is hard. We can't control, we can't fix, we can't tell them what to do. And that's very hard for a lot of mamas, because, we want to use our experiences to protect them. We want to help them. We want to help them not make choices we've made in life, right? But they have to have their own experiences. And that's so hard. But God can use such beautiful things by letting go. And so I read this and I wrote it down. It's actually on my whiteboard. It says, I will no longer strive to do it all by myself, but will enter in full partnership with you. And then I wrote another one and I said, release your burdens, worries, kids daily to God. And then I put Karleen. Let God be in control of my kids and my life. So I think what God has shown me through blood clots and addiction is I had a sense of trying to be in control of stuff, as a lot of us do. A lot of us are fixers. A lot of us try to be tough and handle it all on our own. And so many of us moms, like I talk to so many women on a daily basis, and we just try to handle everything by ourselves. We're so scared to ask for help. We're so scared. We're so scared to release it to God. We try to fix it. Because I think so many of us have trauma or things in our life that we're so scared to not have a sense of control, because when we have control, we feel maybe in our mind safe. We can control it. We can control what happens to us. We can control who hurts us, who says mean words to us. We can control, like in our mind, we can control that. We can protect ourselves in that bubble. But God says, you've got to release it. I am in control. I will protect you. I will prevent, people from hurting you. But we just don't do that. And we try to do all that on our own. And that's a lot to take around every day. I as a mom and as, a businesswoman and all the hats that we wear, that's a lot to take on. And I'm starting to realize that I haven't really lived peace because I've tried to do so much. I just haven't lived. I haven't experienced. I haven't quieted my spirit enough. And through these experiences that we go through, it's supposed to get us to this point where we just fully surrender. Like I told my daughter, it's kind of cool that we're kind of on totally different walks, but I'm able to share with her what I know I need to do too. And I need to fully surrender. I have to surrender to trying to do it all, to trying to fix it all, to being perfect. What the heck's that? Like, us women don't have to be perfect. We don't have to look perfect. We don't have to be perfect. We need to be imperfect, like that is such an amazing word. I really want all of us women to get to a place that we have grace on ourselves. Give ourselves grace every day. If you didn't get something done, it's okay. If something fell apart that day, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all. It's okay. You're not supposed to be perfect. That's how God can use those experiences to show up. He needs us to be in a place where we are in full submission so he can use our testimonies to fully get out there so that they know it's not coming from us, but it's coming from him. He obviously had more work for me to do because I could have died a year ago. I could have died. Like clots are like, that's it. Like, it's such a big, big thing. And just in a matter of a second. And I've seen so many people this past year, people are getting clots so frequently now. Like it is, and they're not making it. And so I see that and I witnessed that. And so it reassures me, God is like, hey, you need to be more present to talk about clots and to talk about, obviously, I didn't even know I would go through this walk of addiction. So there's just, I think we just have to slow down in moments and just say, God, what are you wanting me to see with this? How can I use what you are putting me through right now to get out in this world and make a difference? Because we're so, one of the things I tell people all the time, and I love, I get to coach people and help them with their mindset and breaking through these walls. And one of the things that I love to tell them is, when we are so stuck in what is going on to us, we just get in this deeper hole. But when you start getting out there and you start having action or you start serving others, it takes that I out of the equation and it puts it all about God. And then you're not like, going through all those mental battlefield things that you go through all the time, because I go through those all the time. But I know that when I'm starting to, try to pull back, and we all do that fight or flight, or that freeze, like, oh my gosh, I can't handle one more thing. I'm done. Like toast, no more, can't handle another thing. That's when we have to get out there and we have to kind of push through those walls and know that us being alone and trying to process that by ourselves, we're not supposed to do anything like that. So one thing I really want to challenge people that has been a huge benefit for me is community. Community is so powerful. I didn't, when I got healthy, I didn't realize how important a community is. Now going through this walk of addiction, I didn't know how powerful that is, getting involved in church or small groups or a women's group, whatever. What is it that you're going through right now in your life? What is it specifically you're going through, and who can you center yourself around to help you right now in this moment to not feel alone? What does that group look like? Are you like me? I have custody of my grandson right now. Is it being around other grandmothers that have custody of your grandkids? Is it, maybe you have small toddlers and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no time by myself. How does this work? This crazy, like maybe it's that. Maybe it is that you are a single mom right now and you're going through a divorce, and, maybe getting around other women who are going through that, or dads going through that, wherever it is so important to be around like-minded people so you don't feel alone. This is how we can really stop, with this battle we go through within ourselves, this depression, this anxiety, feeling alone. God wants us to step out in our comfort zone and put us in uncomfortable positions. I got to say, like, to do his work and to take it out of us and make it all about him is all about getting uncomfortable. I mean, when I say that, it is truly true. It's doing things that you never thought you would do, but guess what? He's right beside you. Even if you feel like you're going to throw up before you talk, or you do things like, and you got the jitters, you break out in hives, whatever, like, like we all have fear factors, but he's right there beside us. And he knows that we were meant to do great things. We all have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Like, because did you ever think that you would be doing this podcast?
Oh, absolutely not. This was nowhere on my radar at all. So I can definitely, as I've been listening to you, I can definitely see many, many similarities, and how incredible it is that God weaves his own story through ours when we allow him to do that. And, what a blessing it is to be able to take, the difficulties, the challenges, even the tragedies of our life, and allow them, as you said, a big word for me, surrender, being able to humble ourselves enough to surrender that over and truly mean it when we say, not my will, but yours be done. And just being in that place where we can allow him to work through us, I think is something that many people have the opportunity to do. Not all of us step up to it. And, I mean, that's really be able to work for his good, for his glory. Some really amazing things can happen. So, Karleen, what I would really love for you to do is to let all of our listeners know how they can connect with you when this show is over, how they can, you talked about community. How can they get into your ecosystem? How can they get in and be a part of your community?
Absolutely. So one, God, I prayed on this for a while, and he put on my heart to, I didn't see anything out there. So I did start like a Facebook page for support for parents of addicts. And I think that's such a huge foundation. I wanted this page to be a page that, yes, death is possible and it can happen. I've had to accept, stuff like that can happen, but I also have strong faith, and I have seen miracles happen. And again, like I told my daughter, it's about surrender. So I wanted to have a page that was uplifting and something that was totally led by God, not anything that has to do with me. So I have just seen him just bringing people into this, that, and they just, feel a sense of belongings, and like once a month we'll do like a quick Zoom, and just to be a part of something. I also have connected with another person that I can put a link in. And, he was like, people are not having these hard talks that need to happen. So he's a recovering addict, and, I'm the parent. And so we have kind of joined forces and also started another page. And I will be speaking coming up about, trauma and the stuff that you go through, life as a parent of an addict and what that looks like. So there also is a health community that I'm a part of, that I started a while back, that I wanted people, regardless if they utilize like what I did, it's just for people. I want people to feel that they can have healthy tips, they have support, meet them right where they are, regardless of whatever the heck they're doing. We got to have people beside us. And honestly, it's for mindset. Like that's the biggest part I love about being healthy, is the mindset. So I have two of those spots that I will definitely give you those links, that people will not feel alone with whatever walk they're going through.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And friends, I know that this has been, Carlene has touched on so many different things, which has just been a beautiful thing. And like I said, I'm writing on my little notes down here, but there's so many different parts and pieces that I know I personally relate to in my own walk, in my own journey. And I know that our listeners will draw from your experience and be able to make that connection, be able to relate to that story as well. So Carlene, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, for stepping up into faith to share, because you are absolutely right. We struggle, everyone struggles with numerous things, and it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to share what's going on with you in hopes that it might help somebody else. So I am so grateful for this conversation. I'm so grateful for you saying yes to being here, to being a guest on the show. And I am just grateful to be connected to you.
I thank you so much. And thank you for, listening to God put that into your heart to start something like this. I'm so grateful for you. And together, and all the people that you're going to be able to touch, like this is how we can change and help people feel that there is hope and they're not alone. And thank you for all that you do, and the work that you put into and living in God's will. So I appreciate you, girl.
Hey, friend, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's my pleasure, as always, to be here with you. If what you listened to today resonated with you, if you enjoyed listening to the show, do me a favor. Go ahead and like and subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. Those reviews are so helpful. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate each and every single one of them. And go ahead and share this episode out with a friend. Invite them along for a walk through the Word, and let's enjoy that daily bread together. See you tomorrow.